For centuries, the world of late antiquity in the East had been dominated by the complex relationship between two superpowers, the Eastern Roman Empire, which we often call Byzantium, based in Constantinople, and the Sasanian Empire of Persia. But in the 7th century CE, this long-established order was dramatically and permanently overturned. Emerging from the Arabian Peninsula following the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632, Arab forces, propelled by a potent combination of faith and military prowess, forged a vast new empire stretching from Central Asia to the Atlantic. Today, we'll examine the phases of these remarkable Arab conquests, consider the factors contributing to their astonishing success, and reflect on their profound and lasting legacy, particularly on the world inherited from Rome. Now, understanding how this happened requires appreciating the state of the established powers. When Muhammad died, he left a newly forged polity in Arabia, unified by Islam and possessing, crucially, significant military experience. Their neighbors, Byzantium and Persia, were, frankly, exhausted. They had just emerged from a truly ruinous conflict, the War of 602 to 628, which had depleted their manpower, shattered their economies, and arguably damaged their political legitimacy. Sources suggest widespread discontent in provinces grappling with heavy taxation and religious divisions. The veteran armies of Emperor Heraclius and Shah Khosrow II had battered each other into a state of near collapse. It was into this power vacuum that the newly unified Arabs prepared to move. After consolidating their position during the brief but sharp-ridder wars against internal dissent, Arab armies launched concerted campaigns from around 633 onwards. Their early military approach is interesting. Evidence points towards a core of disciplined infantry, adept at absorbing enemy attacks, particularly cavalry charges, in solid formations supported by archers, before launching decisive counterattacks. This proved remarkably effective against the traditional forces of their weakened neighbors. The Sasanian Empire, Rome's rival for centuries, crumbled with astonishing speed. Following incursions into Mesopotamia, the Sasanian army under King Yazgurd III was decisively broken at the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah in 636. This catastrophe effectively handed Mesopotamia, the heartland of Sasanian power and wealth, including the capital Ctesiphon, to the invaders. Despite attempts to rally, another major defeat at Nahavand in 642, on the Iranian plateau itself, shattered the last imperial field army. Yazgurd became a hunted fugitive, eventually assassinated in 651, marking the effective end of the empire. However, it's important to note that the subjugation of the vast Iranian plateau was a protracted affair. Powerful local magnates and regions offered stiff resistance, major rebellions flared up, and it took decades before Persian lands were fully incorporated into the Caliphate. Simultaneously, the Arabs turned on the eastern Roman provinces of the Levant. This was core Roman territory, held for centuries. The brilliant Arab general Khalid ibn al-Walid orchestrated the campaign, culminating in the pivotal Battle of Yarmouk in 636. There, Emperor Heraclius's forces, despite his earlier triumphs against Persia, suffered a catastrophic defeat. Following Yarmouk, Heraclius made the strategic, though painful, decision to withdraw his remaining forces from Syria, ceding the province to establish a more defensible frontier in Anatolia. This didn't mean an immediate collapse. Cities with Roman garrisons, like Damascus, which required conquering twice, Jerusalem, which fell after a long siege, and the port of Caesarea Maritima, holding out until 640, resisted fiercely. Nevertheless, by 641, the Levant was lost to Constantinople. Byzantine strategy shifted to defense in Anatolia, supporting guerrilla actions, and using their naval power for raids, a pattern that would define the Byzantine Arab frontier for centuries. The loss of Egypt, invaded from 639 under Amr ibn al-As, was perhaps even more devastating for Byzantium. This wealthy province was not just a major source of grain, the breadbasket of Constantinople, but also generated significant tax revenue. Local Byzantine forces were relatively weak, and after early Arab victories near Pelusium and Heliopolis, and the fall of the key fortress of Babylon, the province was effectively indefensible. The death of the experienced Emperor Heraclius in 641 further demoralized the defenders. Alexandria, the great Mediterranean metropolis, capitulated in 642. A brief Byzantine recapture by sea in 644 failed. The permanent loss of Egypt fundamentally weakened the Eastern Roman Empire's resource base and secured the economic foundation of the Caliphate. The westward expansion across North Africa, the Roman provinces of the Maghreb, proved a far more drawn-out and difficult process, lasting much of the 7th and early 8th centuries. Initial campaigns resulted in tribute rather than conquest. A more determined push under the Umayyad Caliphate from 665 faced formidable resistance from both remaining Byzantine strongholds and, crucially, the indigenous Berber populations. Commanders like Akbar ibn Nafi made dramatic advances but also suffered major setbacks, including Akbar's own death in an ambush. Carthage, the ancient Punic and Roman capital, was captured, lost, and finally retaken and destroyed around 698 to prevent further Byzantine attempts. Significant Berber revolts, notably one led by Queen Kahina, continued to challenge Arab authority until suppressed with considerable force by 709. This long struggle highlights the complexities beyond the initial rapid victories. The conquest of North Africa directly led to the invasion of Visigothic Hispania in 711. The Visigothic kingdom, one of the successor states to the Western Roman Empire, was mired in internal conflict. An army, reportedly consisting mainly of Berbers under the command of Tariq ibn Ziyad, crossed from Africa. King Roderick was defeated and killed, and much of the peninsula submitted relatively quickly, often through agreements that preserved local structures. By 714, the bulk of Hispania, renamed Al-Andalus, was under Muslim rule. This rapid collapse brought Islamic power deep into Europe. The subsequent push across the Pyrenees into Septimania, Visigothic Gaul, saw the capture of Narbonne, but was significantly checked by the Franks under Odo of Aquitaine at the Battle of Toulouse in 721, marking a limit to northward expansion in the west. While focused on the Mediterranean, we shouldn't forget the vast eastern expansion. From Persia, Arab forces pushed into Transoxiana, Central Asia, and Sind, the Indus Valley. Central Asia involved decades of complex warfare against local principalities, Turkic groups, and interventions from Tang China. Cities changed hands multiple times, and major revolts occurred before Arab control was solidified, notably after the Battle of Talas against the Tang in 751. In Sind, Muhammad bin Qasim's campaigns from 711 combined military action with treaties, but further penetration into India was limited by powerful local kingdoms. These eastern campaigns stretched the Caliphate's resources immensely. Historians generally view the main phase of these conquests as concluding around 750 CE, marked by the Abbasid Revolution which overthrew the Umayyads. This change partly reflected the rising influence of non-Arab Muslims within the empire. The sheer speed and scale of the Arab conquests remain remarkable. The reasons are complex and much debated, but clearly involve the internal cohesion and motivation of the Arab forces, the specific military and political weaknesses of Byzantium and Persia at that precise moment, and arguably, the ability of the new administration to co-opt local elites and systems in some regions. The legacy was transformative and ended the world of late antiquity as it had been known. Islam was established as a major world religion across this vast area. The linguistic and cultural map of the Middle East and North Africa was profoundly changed through Arabization. A new political and cultural powerhouse emerged, centered on the Caliphate, which would be a major factor in Mediterranean and world affairs for centuries. It also became a crucial conduit for preserving and transmitting classical knowledge, Greek philosophy, science, and medicine back into Europe during the Middle Ages. The political geography we see today in these regions owes much to the events unleashed in the 7th and 8th centuries. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Synapti Learn. If you found this valuable or interesting, please take a moment to like this episode and subscribe. Thanks for listening, and keep learning.